My name is Sheldon Callahan. Welcome to the Atlassian Platform for Developers track. Everything on this track is about the platform, so you'll learn a lot of different things about each aspect of our product base and everything that we've been building in the last year or so. I'm really excited about this next talk. This is about building a business on Trello. I'm really excited about Bentley coming and talking about this because he is a rising micro-influencer. He's influenced me in a few ways. There's two ways. One, he's a nomad, and so now I want to be a nomad too. I want to just live on the fringe. And the other is he has a mullet, and I think I can do the first one, but I don't think I can do the second one anymore. So that's not going to happen. So I'm really excited for him to talk about this because there's a huge opportunity with Trello, and hopefully that you guys will see it as well. A little housekeeping before we get started. If you haven't already, silence your phone. But please download the app if you already haven't so you can take our survey and tell us how we're doing. So without any further ado, Bentley Cook.
Thank you, Sheldon. All right, so there are a lot of things that I want to cover today, but I'm curious, who uses Trello? Cool. Who knows what power-ups are on Trello? Cool. Who has built a power-up, started building a power-up, played around with our API? Okay, cool. That's good, because we're covering all those things today, so I wanted to figure out, kind of gauge where people are. My goal of this talk is to leave you with an understanding of how you can build your business on Trello. So that means building a power-up, building an integration, different ways that you can charge for it. I will say, I hope no one came here hoping that we were going to announce that we have billing and licensing as part of Trello, or that we're part of the Atlassian marketplace, or that we have our own marketplace. That is still not something that is on our roadmap, but if you have really passionate feelings about that, come bring them to me, and I will happily share them with my product manager. So, things we're going to cover today are power-ups. What are power-ups? A little bit about how we feel about and think about power-ups at Trello. Teams. I think to build a meaningful business on Trello, you have to have a good understanding of how the universe of Trello exists, and I think it's a little bit tricky if you're coming into it fresh. We'll talk about different billing strategies, so based on the teams, what opportunities do you have to make some money on those different types of organizations. We'll actually deep dive into how you can build a power-up, look at some code to authorize and sign up and get some subscription information for theoretical power-up. We'll check out some other opportunities. I think that you can charge for power-ups, but there are also other ways that you can build on top of Trello and really grow your business. And then also talk about what's new. We've been shipping a lot of stuff since the last time we spoke at Atlas Camp, so definitely want to cover some of that. So first and foremost, let's talk about power-ups. For those of you that don't know what a power-up is, it is a way to add some extra functionality to a Trello board. So here we have our Trello board, and you can see in the top right there, we've got two buttons. And those two buttons unlock some extra functionality. We've got a calendar that swings open, can open cards. And then we also have this little nice number stats. And number stats is a power-up that aggregates information about another power-up. So if you look in that middle card there, the Intergalactic Tours LLC, you can see it's got a due date, it's got the last contact and opportunity. Those are actually fields off of our custom fields power-up. So very much like custom fields in other Atlassian products, able to add some extra context and metadata to a Trello card. And then you can see it's all being pulled into this number stats power-up. So power-ups can do all sorts of things. The calendar one gave you a nice big view, nice big hook into that user experience. The number stats one just opens a nice little Trello-y pop-up there. So they can do all sorts of things. And as we've said many, many times before, we really believe that Trello is an 80% tool. We don't intend for Trello to solve all of the specialization use cases that our users have. If you haven't checked it out yet, I would highly recommend going to trello.com/inspiration. We have put together a collection of boards that users have submitted to us. We reached out and said, hey, what are the cool things you're using Trello for? And they gave us things that we had no idea that you could use Trello for, everything from planning your wedding, to writing screenplays and books, to we heard from like middle school teachers that make their students sign up for Trello, and that's how they do assignments and group projects. So check that out, both to be inspired on how to use Trello, but also to get some ideas to say like, oh, if Trello is not going to build something specialized for this use case, maybe there's an opportunity for me to build a power-up that's specialized for that use case. And that's what we think power-ups are. They really solve that other 20%. We're never going to add Gantt charts to the core product of Trello. Like, if you're planning a wedding using Gantt charts, like, it's a really weird wedding that you're planning. And so we believe that power-ups should exist for everyone, and there should be a power-up for every use case. We just crossed the threshold of 100 public power-ups, and that was a pretty big deal. So we're continuing to grow the number of public power-ups that we have, and we really want there to be a power-up for everything. This is a really interesting use case. We had this power-up recently submitted for review. It is a power-up that helps you write books and screenplays. So it helps you manage the number of pages in your page count. And then if you're writing a screenplay, it helps you keep track of the number of beats that you have. And so this takes Trello from being something that one could approach and say, oh, I could use Trello to write a screenplay, to, oh, Trello can be used to write a screenplay. So it's that real deep dive and specialization that power-ups really find, and we want to continue to see that growth. And of course, we do have power-ups for all of your favorite Atlassian products. We integrate with a number of teams out there, and as you know, Atlassian's mission is to unleash the potential of every team. I say in a shameless transition into teams. So I don't think that this is like super foundational to you building a great power-up, but I do think having a good understanding of the way that teams work at Trello is core to making sure that you're charging for the right things and the right functionality. So really making sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. So let's look at the different types of Trello teams that we have. There are really three versions. There's free. This gives you a lot of functionality, core functionality in Trello. You can have team boards. There's a 1 power-up limit, so you've got 1 power-up allowed per board. As you and your team grow, maybe you need a little bit more organization. You've got boards everywhere. We've got business class, and that gives you board collections, unlimited power-ups, and one-click access removal, so a little bit of administrative control. And then finally, when you need like full-blown domain lockdown, SSO, we've got the enterprise product. And one of the cool things about that for developers is we actually have a SCIM API implementation, so an opportunity to integrate with that product and other enterprise-level products that support SCIM APIs. So what do teams look like at Trello? You can have a team, you can have members of the team, and you can have team admins, and then you can have a collection of boards that all belong to a team. So this is the Trello team, and when you look at it in the Trello UI, what you see is, you've got different users here. These are my team members, and I'm able to decide, do I want them to be an admin? Do I want them to be normal? Admins can do all the same things normal users can. In addition, they can change settings for the team. And the reason I show this is because one of the really cool things about our platform, I think, is that the API that we use internally for all of our clients is the same ones that we expose externally. So in this case, I'm looking in our web client, and if I wanted to know, how are we getting this? How is Trello actually figuring this out? I can just go look at the network tab and see the exact same calls that are being made. So if you're ever curious, like, hey, how does Trello get that data into its client? Just swing open the network tab, make the exact same API requests that we're making, and you've got that data. And so here we use, we've got these members, so this is just an example API call. You can see that we're getting back information about the members that are on the board, and we maintain the relationship of the members in our memberships object. So this is all just to say that this is data that's accessible via the API. Robust power-ups will make use of that, and we'll use this a little bit later on. So how does that change when you've actually got a board in a team? So you can see that we can have people on the board. So we've got members on the board that aren't, or that are in the team, but we have admins on the board that aren't team admins. So there's a whole nother organizational structure to boards outside of teams. And one of the really cool things about power-ups is it doesn't require an admin to enable a power-up. Any member on a board can enable a power-up. So really low barrier of entry to getting a power-up enabled on a board. And similar to before, we can take a look at this great board that I've got where I've begun to collect beautiful mullets. And if you click on the little face pile up there, you can see, just like before, we have 2 members on this board, 2 different types of permissions, admin and normal. Admins can add and remove members and change settings, and normal members can view and edit cards. And just like before, we've tried to be consistent and redundant across our APIs. If you wanted to see where that data was coming from, you can make a call to our backend, exact same call that we're making. We get the members off of it, and we then can look at the memberships, and that's the relationship between those two. So that's a team with a board. We can see it gets a little bit funky, and it keeps getting funky. You can have members on a board that aren't in a team. And so as you continue to go down this rabbit hole, you can see that there are a lot of different ways that people have set up Trello, they're using Trello, they're collaborating differently. We've made it really easy in the Trello product to create these kind of hard situations and scenarios to really wrap your mind around as a developer. But it's important to think about this full broad scope when you're trying to figure out, what do I want to charge my users for? Which brings us to, what billing strategies exist on the Trello platform? We know that this is the world, that you're providing some functionality in this world, but where are you providing that functionality? Is it across a set of boards? So do you not care about teams and users, but you actually just want to charge as the number of boards your integration or power-up is enabled on grows? Do you want to charge more? Or is it across some set of users so that as more users use that, you start charging more? Or do you actually care about, as the team grows, you want to charge more? So more members on a team mean that you want to make sure you're capturing that information and charging as that grows. And I think that these can be summed up into 3 business models. We've got pay per team, pay per board, and pay per in action. So pay per team is the one that as that team grows, more members on the team means that you can charge for more users. And it's pretty easy to grok. We've got pay per board. So as your power-up is enabled on more boards, you're able to charge more. And that means that you've got to think, like, where are you providing functionality? Is it really like, is the key part that you're providing value to the board, or is the key part that you're providing value to a team? You can think of the pay per team as you're providing some sort of like roll-up metrics so that you can see reporting across a team set of boards, whereas maybe the pay per board is you're providing some functionality or utility that is valuable on that board. And then we also have pay per in action, which I think is a unique one. And that's where you have some sort of action that you bundle together and you let a user take so many of those and you price in different tiers. So examples of people doing this out in the wild, successful power-ups. Butler is a very, very cool power-up that allows you to automate Trello. So you can create rules in it like, oh, every time we set the custom field to extra large, we automatically assign the card to the PM because they haven't done a good job breaking this story down. Or you can add a dynamic button to the top of the board that says, sort all of my cards and all of my lists by some field. So it's a really nice way to automate Trello. And they actually provide 2 different types of pricing. So you begin to kind of think about this like pricing matrix that you have. You have to consider, are the people using this on a team? Are they not on a team? Are they individual users? And that's what they've done here. So this is the individual user pricing. You can see that in that silver tier, we've got bundle up to 250 command runs per a month. So this is taking that bundled action approach for the individual plan. And then like in that truth table, I like to think of it, when you bump from individual to team, they're actually doing a different type of pricing model where they're doing $5 per user per month, but still with some quota of commands around there. So doing a blend of those two pricing structures. Another very cool power-up out there that has been successful on the platform is Hello Epics. Hello Epics allows you to create relationships between Trello cards. So you can see in the left there, we've got parent and children defined. And we've got this beautiful, very Trello-y view of those children cards, so we can see the state of those. They've got a nice little badge on them to let you know who their parent card is. And because Hello Epics, has kind of done this decision-making math, and they've said, oh, really we're providing at a per board member utility, so that's what they charge for. They don't care about what team you're on. Really, all they care about is the number of members across the set of boards that you have. So there's no single right answer here. There are integrations and power-ups out there that are charging across that whole spectrum. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's really up to you. So you really want to think about, like, what is your product to provide? What is the high-level functionality? And we want to make sure that you have that right inflection point for monetization so that as the thing that you provide functionality to grows, you also want to make sure that your recurring revenue also grows. All right, so we're gonna deep dive into one. I'm gonna grab some water. Go with me on a journey here. We have a company, and it's a really cool company. We are the biggest company in this space. I mean, it is just an untapped market. And all of our users are like, we use Trello. And we're like, okay, we've got to get on this Trello train. Like, everyone keeps talking about it. And so we go and we brainstorm with our product team a little bit. And they're like, all right, we know what we want to do. We're going to build the Trello Mullet Rater Power-Up. We are the premier mullet rating service in this space. No one else is doing what we're doing out there. Our business model is that teams rate mullets, and all of our teams are reaching out to us and they're saying, we really use Trello the most for managing our mullets, and so we'd love to not have to go look at our Trello cards and then put our ratings into your service and back and forth and back and forth. And we're like, okay, that makes sense. Let's mock something up. We get a designer throw this together, and it's like, that makes total sense. We'll add a little button there, and we'll make it really easy for our users to rate mullets in Trello. Sounds great. We already have a killer business model. We know that mullet rating happens only in teams, so we want to charge per team. And we put it together and we say, $10 a month, 30 users in a team, and all of a sudden we have $3,600 of annual revenue recurring, and that's only for one team. So this is our business case. And we have some requirements and assumptions we need to make. We're only going to provide functionality at the team level, so we don't care if you're trying to rate mullets by yourself. You should be rating mullets with other people, because what we do is we aggregate all of the mullet ratings up to the top into a report that CEOs then take actions on. We're going to assume that for this power-up that we're going to build, that any user can admin. So any Trello member can enable a power-up on a board, so we want to make sure that any member that can enable the power-up can also set it up and manage billing functionality. Again, we're going to assume that this requires that you're rating mullets on a team, and I think most importantly, we have to believe that mullet rating is a promising venture. So, looking at the shape of the Trello world, this is what we're really building for. This is what we care about. This is the world and the scope of Trello that we know about. And ultimately, that's what we want our database to look like. You can see over on the right here, this is kind of like the ideal schema for a very baseline power-up that you can charge for. We've got the organization ID. We've got some information, display information about the organization. We've got an array of members that are on that team. And then we've got a subscription ID. So the subscription ID, you can think of our end goal there as we prompt our users with, like a Stripe form, and we get some data back from Stripe, and that's our subscription ID, and we jam that into the database. Our members are going to be an array of all of the people that have authorized. So it's a key part of our power-up is that we require every user to authorize with us. And we require that because we actually are going to use their power-up or their Trello token as a way of accessing our backend service, and that's really kind of the key that we use for making sure that they've authorized with us. All right, so we're gonna now dive into what does this actually look like under the hood? What does the code look like? How do power-ups work? When you go and you create a power-up in our power-up admin, you give us some information about your power-up. You give us a connector URL. You give us a display name. And then you also let us know what capabilities you want to make use of. Capabilities in the Trello platform are board buttons, card buttons. They're things that allow you to render some Trello-y experience onto our apps. And so what happens is when you register that power-up, you give us a connector URL. And that connector URL is going to be just a HTML page that we then load into a hidden iframe. It's going to include our power-up client library on it. So this is how we establish the connection between your power-up and Trello. We start talking via post message under the hood. And so you've told us in that backend, you said, hey, I really want to render a board button. That's what we're going to go with. You can imagine on our Trello board having a nice little authorize button. If they haven't authorized with us, we want them to click that, start the flow. As the flow goes on, they're authorized, they subscribe, and eventually we give them that nice mullet rating functionality. So because we have told the backend that we want to make use of the board buttons capability, when Trello loads your connector HTML in the back, it calls the Trello PowerUp initialize. And now what really happens here is Trello is talking from its backend to the HTML connector URL there. And your mullet rater service is just kind of this backend REST API that once it's served, that HTML page is sitting there for the time being. So what does the board button look like? Like I said, just a nice little button up there. And so under the hood, what happens, you provide this code to us. You've told us that you want to make use of board buttons. So when you call initialize on that connector page, we say, hey, we expect you to give us the set of capabilities that you have registered. It's just an object that contains keys. Each key is the capability. And then the value for the key is the function that we call when we're in the right context. So for a board button, we say, hey, we're just rendering a board. We know there needs to be a button there. So what should we do? We call this function. This function takes in as parameters the T, which is just a little helper object that gives you a connection to the Trello client library. So it allows you to open some of those Trello user experiences. It allows you to get some information about the world of Trello as it is. And it also gives you the ability to store and set data. So as I said, we were going to use the token as a way of figuring out whether the current user is authorized with our backend service or not. We're actually going to do that by storing that data and retrieving it in Trello's plugin data. So Trello provides two methods, t.set and t.get, that allow you to store data and retrieve that data at different scopes on different objects. So here, I'm going to kick off a promise chain. And I'm going to say, hey, do I have a token stored for this member at the private scope? And then, if I don't, this is where I kick off that authorization flow. And here you can see this is where I'm actually returning the board buttons. We're returning an array of objects. Each object in it represents the board button. Here we have one button. It's got a nice little white icon. It's got some text, and then it's got a callback. That callback is the code that we want executed at the point in time that the user clicks on that button. And I'm going to do a little hand waving here, but we've got code for this online. We've got a little authorize prompt there. When you click on that, we open this authorization flow. So this is well-documented best practice. I'll show you the link to get how to do this at the very end. So just ride along with me. What you're going to get from this is a token. Trello has consent-based tokens that allow you access to the API on their behalf. So no matter whether you're writing a power-up or just a normal integration, every single time that you need to take an action for a user, you're going to first have to have them consent. That gives you a token that you can then use along with your API key to make requests. So even if all you're doing is writing a little script on your local machine that moves cards around, you're going to have to, at some point, go through this flow and get a token that is identified with the API key, and then you can use it. So here, what's happening under the hood for our power-up is we're going to hit allow. That's going to kick us back a token. We've got a little listener on the window for our pop-up there. It's going to listen for that token to be received, and we're going to call the corresponding t.set once we have that token. So you can imagine it's a little hand-wavy. We've got code examples of this, but we now have a token, right? So let's check out what happens when we already have a token. And just to walk through that flow again, in this flow diagram, we called initialize. We asked our power-up, hey, you said you wanted to render board buttons. We asked, hey, is this an authorized user? Do we have a token stored for them? We kicked back, Trello did, and said no. And our power-up said, okay, show that board button then. We need to let them know that they need to authorize. All right, they authorized. We've got the user data. What do we do with it now? Now we need to reach out to our backend service and say, is this a team I know about? So let's check out that code flow. So we have a token, they're authorized. What next? First, we're going to start getting some of that data. Remember the schema that we had, what we wanted in our database at the end of the day was information about the organization or the team that the user belongs to, as well as the user's ID and their token. So far, we've got the token, and you can see here, we're getting the organization and the member ID from the context. The context here is just a little bit of information about the state of the world of Trello as it currently is. So we need to push that to our backend service. We're just going to make a request across the wire. Probably don't do as I do here. Probably want to post that data. That token's a little special, so be responsible. But I'm shooting from the hip. So we've pushed that data to our service, and our moderator service says, okay, let me look through. Do I have that organization ID anywhere? It's a new team. I don't have that anywhere. So we probably need for them to sign up. And you can see we kick off that flow really easily. We say, hey, this person's not subscribed. Let's kick off the sign-up flow. And this is where you can imagine that you show a Stripe payment form or something else. You get their billing information. You get the information that you need to register them with your backend service. And just as before, we take that data, we hold on to it. There's a little bit of back and forth between the power-up and your service. And the team signs up. We've stored the data. Boom. All right, we've got full functionality. We can now show them that nice card button, and they can start rating wallets. So to review again, we've got our team here, and we've now successfully gotten the org ID. We've got members with their tokens, and we've got a subscription. So all of our users have now authorized and subscribed. And every single user will go through that flow for the authorization. They'll do a check and say, do I have a token for this member? If I don't, authorize. And then I'll ask our backend service, are they a part of an organization that I already know about? If no, subscribe them, sign them up. If yes, don't worry about them. Go ahead and show them full functionality. But something good happens. 3 users turns into 6 users, and their boards grow. How do we make sure that we account for billing on this? We want to make sure, we want those dollars. Those are $3 extra for those heads there. We could go back and pull that API and say, hey, are there any new members? But I guarantee you the server team at Trello will be very upset with you constantly polling. So use webhooks, please. Webhooks are a great way of keeping up to date with information that's happening in Trello. Our server team will thank you. So what should have happened when we had this back and forth flow is at the point in time that the subscription made it all the way to our backend service, our service should have reached out to Trello and said, hey, I want to create a webhook and be notified about changes. Webhooks at Trello can be created on any Trello object. You post a URL that you want us to send updates to. We call those updates actions. That's how they're stored in our schema. And everything that happens on Trello comes across a webhook for that object. So you can imagine if you wanted to listen to changes on a card, we'll send a webhook action for every single one of those. We'll post you data about every single time a label is added, a new description or description's updated, a card member is added. And it's very, very chatty, very, very quickly. So there's a lot of data and information there that you can use. So you post a webhook across and you say, hey, I want to listen to changes on this organization because I care about keeping their billing information up to date. And so let's look at what that ultimately looks like. We create a webhook, that team grows a little bit, and Trello sends over this massive payload of data in an action. And if you see down there at the bottom, this is an action of type remove member from organization. So on our end, as Trello's posting these across to us, we just listen, filter through, and we want to keep an eye on add member to organization, and also, important, remove member from organization. Don't want to bill for people that aren't a part of the team anymore. And so there are webhooks for everything, and I think that's one of the key things about Trello. It's like that's how you want to make sure to listen for things that you want to bill for. Make sure that you're using webhooks to see as that number changes, grows and shrinks. All right, so this is our final flow. Like that is a full-blown power-up. You can see now we're posting a webhook. We're showing full functionality. Mullet Raider is a success. Our product team is going wild because we're the biggest player in the space. We've got a power-up that can be enabled, add some functionality. We've onboarded, so we've successfully signed up new teams, collected the needed data, got those subscriptions going. And most importantly, we have set up a scalable way to monitor for changes in that team. We now know when users leave the team, when more members are added to the team. So that's kind of like a real rough draft of a starting power-up that you can start making money off of. So which business model? Again, it's really up to you, and you want to think about which type of functionality you provide. Our Mullet Raider there was providing it at the team level, and so that's what we were billing for. All right. So that was power-ups. That was power-ups. We're going to talk about power-ups some more. What other opportunities exist on Trello to grow your business? I think it's really, really great how many people are using Trello with their other products. We've had tons and tons of success with partners building integrations with Trello that they don't charge for. But it's a great way if you have users out there that you think your product may be complementary with Trello users, it's a great way to introduce Trello users to your product, building a power-up and making it public. And we've actually seen examples of this. Hugo is a note-taking app that allows you to take notes for meetings, and I love this customer quote. Someone said this to a PM there. Hugo allows us to turn meeting notes into action items, but we manage action items in Trello. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Why don't we just build an integration with Trello, help our users use both tools together? And so they released an integration, and this is a graph of their user onboarding and signups for the Trello channel. And then they actually did a really cool thing. They said, hey, we think that this could be something that we expose to more of our users or more Trello users. Can we make an inspiration board to show you how you might use our product with Trello? And we threw that inspiration board on our Trello.com/inspirations, and it was a huge hit. Tons of Trello users were like, whoa, that is a great way to take meeting notes because I do manage all of my actions in Trello, but I don't have a great meeting note tool yet. So just a great example of how you can use Trello to grow your business without necessarily charging or monetizing for the services inside of Trello. And this is one that I find really exciting and interesting. As of August 2018, there are over 4,500 custom power-ups across 3,600 different Trello teams. So what does this mean? This means that although there are some really great public power-ups, there are also some really powerful power-ups being used by teams privately. So you can imagine you and your team have a really dialed-in process, you have a very specific workflow, you build a power-up for it, and that's not something you think anyone else is doing. And that's totally fine. We want custom power-ups to be used for that. But there's an opportunity here where if you're a developer and you say, man, I really want to get in on this Trello game, but I don't know what to build. I wish someone would come to me and ask me to build a power-up. I think there's an opportunity for that. We don't have a formal way of connecting you yet, but definitely if you're interested in building a power-up and would like to talk to people that want custom power-ups built, come grab me. I'd love to pick your brain a little bit and see how we can turn this into a more expansive program and explore more opportunities here. And finally, what's new? We've been very busy shipping all sorts of stuff over the past while, and this is just a very, very quick overview. We have a brand new custom fields power-up. So that's one of our most popular power-ups that adds those custom fields. We've now updated it so that there's full API access. It's on mobile. There are unlimited fields. And of course, we love webhooks. There are webhooks for everything that happens in the custom fields power-up. And as we saw with that early power-up, you can actually build power-ups that kind of integrate together. You can actually build a power-up that plays nicely with the custom fields power-up. So that was very exciting. We have whole new listings. You saw some earlier old pictures of our power-up directory, but we just launched a brand new version of our public directory. And this is where users go to find power-ups that they want to enable. And we put you in full control of your listing. When you go to register a power-up, we ask you for a description of that power-up. It's marked down. You can put whatever the heck you want to in there. And it's a great opportunity for you to really gain control of what your users see when they look for your power-up. We've also been adding new capabilities like crazy. We've got a really exciting one that hasn't totally shipped. It's almost there. It's in beta. It's called card covers. This allows you to add images dynamically to both a card front and a card back. We've seen some really unique use cases for that, and we're excited to see what more comes from that. Added on disable, giving you the ability to run some code before your power-up's disabled. We've got card back section. This allows you to render an iframe on the back of the card. So we're continuing to build more powerful capabilities and toolings for you. If there's something that you've looked at Trello before and you said, I really want to be able to do X, Y, or Z, come and talk to me. These were all things that we heard from previous summits and Atlas camps, and we added them. And if you're curious about what's coming in the future, we have a public board that we managed our changelog on. We announced new upcoming features, and we also have a really nice community for you to stay connected. We have a public Slack channel and a developers channel, a public Slack team and a developers channel on it. And we have tons of people hanging out in there talking. We've got people that have built successful power-ups in there. Both the Butler team and the Hello Epics team are usually in there talking about things. So if you want to come be a part of the conversation, ask questions, get stuck, join us. And then go to glitch.com/Trello for some getting started projects. All of that authorization example, we have an example power-up in there, code that you can copy and paste. So go check that out if you want to get started quickly. And with that, I'll take some questions if there are any.
Cheers. Firstly, that was an epic talk. Really, really good. I've actually got two questions. Is that okay? Cool. I'm being greedy. The first question is that with I'm glad you talked about the authorization and authentication, because I know that you've got two specific mechanisms. One is the classic Oauth 1, and one is the custom Trello flow. Is there any plans to bring in Oauth 2, especially given yesterday's announcement?
No, there's not currently.
Okay.
If that's something that you're interested in, grab me after this, and I'd love to talk to you more about how you would want to use that. It's not something that's on a roadmap now, but we're always open to hearing more.
Definitely. Okay. And my second question, it fluttered out of my mind. It was a really good one as well. No, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. You guys all want mullets, don't you? Yeah. I do too.
It's easy. Anyone can do it. Well, maybe not Sheldon.
Hi. I just wanted to ask if there is any review process into the marketplace. We are building a power-up, and we hope to publish in a few months from now. There is a review process, how it works. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I realize now I should have added a developers.trello.com slide. But we do have a review process, and we have it documented a little bit on our developer website, developers.trello.com. You submit the power-up, and what we do is we take the ID of it and we add it to a board internally. We test out the functionality there. We've got a set of guidelines that we check to make sure it ticks all those boxes. But the TLDR of those guidelines is, does it do what it says on the tin? Does it feel like a natural extension of Trello? And is it bug-free? So yeah, that's a review process. If you have something that you want to show, though, I'd love to talk to you about it now. And usually it takes it really depends. It's a very hands-on review process right now. And so it depends kind of what shape the power-up is in. If it's a great power-up, no problems, meets all the guidelines, it takes less than a week. If it's something that needs some love and some back and forth, it can take anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks, just depending.
Question?
I'm allowed to ask a question, right?
I think so.
If somebody wants to find out about what kind of power-ups people are interested in, what we're hearing from users, where could they go to find out about that?
Yeah, so we also have, if you're looking for ideas, you say, oh, I'd really like to build a power-up, but our product doesn't necessarily make sense in the Trello ecosystem or world yet. We do have a public board where we keep track of all of the power-ups that users have asked us for. The easiest way to find it, because it's a public board and you get free SEO with a public board, if you search for Trello platform power-up ideas. I think you might just platform power-up ideas. And the top result guaranteed will be a public Trello board. And that's every single time that a user has said, hey, I want X, or we would like to be able to do Y. Anthony and I have done everything we can to curate those and dump those into that board to give you some ideas and fodder for building great power-ups.
Great. All right, that looks like time. If you can, please fill out the survey. Let us know how we're doing. Hopefully you enjoyed the talk, and thank you for your time.